The HSS Valiant drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its sleek hull reflecting the cosmic dance of purple and blue gases that surrounded it. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the bridge's observation window, her dark eyes fixed on the spectacular view before her. After 15 years of space exploration, humanity had finally received their first invitation for diplomatic talks with the Asterian Collective, an alliance of spacefaring civilizations that had been watching Earth's progress with growing interest. Navigation check complete, Captain. Lieutenant James Chen reported from his station. We're on schedule for the rendezvous at the Collective's diplomatic station. Elena nodded, though something about the nebula's unusual electromagnetic patterns made her veteran instincts tingle. The Valiant was humanity's newest diplomatic vessel, equipped with state-of-the-art defensive systems, carefully hidden beneath its elegant exterior. First impressions mattered, especially when meeting advanced alien civilizations. Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. Communications Officer Sarah Mitchell's voice cut through the bridge's quiet atmosphere. It's coming from the Hadrian system, just 2 light-years off our current course. Elena frowned. The Hadrian system wasn't marked on any of their stellar maps. Analysis. The signal matches no known pattern in our database, but it's definitely artificial. Signal strength suggests it's been broadcasting for at least 3 days. Sarah's fingers danced across her holographic interface. There's something else. The signal keeps changing its encryption pattern every 12 seconds. An adaptive distress beacon, Chief Science Officer Dr. Marcus Wong commented, his expression thoughtful. That's remarkably sophisticated technology. Elena weighed her options. The diplomatic meeting was crucial for humanity's future, but she couldn't ignore a distress call. It went against everything the United Earth Space Force stood for. How long would a detour take us, Lieutenant Chen? 6 hours total, assuming standard warp speeds. We'd still make the rendezvous with 4 hours to spare. Plot the course. Mitchell, notify command about our deviation. Wong, I'd want full sensor sweeps of the Hadrian system before we enter. As the Valiant altered its course, none of the crew could have predicted they were about to stumble into a conflict that would reshape the balance of power in their corner of the galaxy. The Hadrian system came into view 3 hours later, a binary star system with 5 planets orbiting their shared center of mass. The distress signal originated from the second planet, a rocky world with a thin atmosphere of nitrogen and carbon dioxide. Multiple debris fields detected in orbit, Wong reported, his voice tense. Based on material composition and decay patterns, this was a space battle. Recent too, less than a week old. Before Elena could respond, the ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander David Patel, shouted, "Energy spike. Massive gravitational distortion forming off our port bow." The space before them seemed to twist, reality itself folding like paper as 3 massive vessels emerged from what appeared to be tiers in the fabric of space. Their design was unlike anything humanity had encountered, organic-looking ships that resembled deep-sea predators, their hulls covered in what looked like scales that shifted colors in the starlight. Drachnid raiders. A new voice spoke, and Elena turned to see the ship's eye avatar, ARI, materializing beside her. I've cross-referenced their ship design with all known spacefaring species. They're responsible for 17 confirmed attacks on peaceful civilizations in the past 3 months. Shields up, Elena ordered, her voice calm despite the situation. Tactical, passive scans only. Let's not appear hostile yet. The Drachnid ships moved with unnatural grace, their formation perfectly synchronized as they surrounded the Valiant. A transmission cut through their communications, the universal translator struggling to keep up with the complex language. Human vessel. The translated voice was deep and resonant, carrying an air of ancient malice. You have entered restricted space. Your technology and crew will be repurposed. Resistance is inadvisable. Elena's jaw tightened. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the HSS Valiant. We were responding to a distress signal. If this is your territory, we apologize for the intrusion and will withdraw immediately. The laugh that came through the comm system sent chills down the crew's spines. The signal served its purpose, Captain. Your species' reputation for helping others makes you predictable. Now power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Multiple weapon systems activating on all 3 vessels, Battle reported. Their energy readings are off the charts, Captain. Nothing like we've ever seen. Elena's mind raced through their options. The Valiant's hidden weapons might surprise the raiders, but against 3 ships with clearly superior technology, they stood little chance in direct combat. Yet surrender wasn't an option, not with humanity's future at stake. HFY, begin recording everything. If we don't make it out of this, Earth needs to know what they're facing. Elena straightened her uniform. All hands, battle stations. Chen, plot us a retreat vector through the debris field. Use it for sensor confusion. Patil, ready our surprise package. Mitchell, prepare a quantum burst transmission to command with all our data so far. The Drachnid ships launched their first attack, energy beams of impossible colors slicing through space toward the Valiant. But humanity hadn't survived centuries of its own wars without learning a few tricks. The Valiant's outer hull shimmered, advanced metamaterials refracting some of the energy, while emergency quantum shields absorbed the rest. Return fire, Elena ordered. Show them humanity doesn't go down without a fight. The Valiant's hidden weapon ports opened, revealing an arsenal that would have made any Earth military proud. But as the battle began in earnest, Elena knew they weren't fighting for victory. They were fighting for information, for survival, and most importantly, for time. Whatever these Drachnid raiders were, humanity needed to prepare for their existence. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human space exploration itself. 3 weeks after the Hadrian System incident, the orbital research station Prometheus hung above Earth like a steel spider web, its numerous modules connected by gleaming corridors. In Lab Module 7, Dr. Marcus Wong stared at the holographic display, showing the Valiant's sensor data from their encounter with the Drachnid raiders. Dark circles under his eyes testify to countless sleepless nights spent analyzing the information they'd managed to gather during their desperate escape. Play it again, HFY, he requested, and the AI compiled. The hologram showed the moment when the Drachnid ships emerged from their spatial distortions, their organic-looking vessels defying conventional physics. 19th replay complete, HFY noted. I've detected something new in the quantum fluctuation patterns preceding their emergence. Wong leaned forward, his exhaustion forgotten. Show me. The hologram zoomed in on the space just before the raiders appeared. Tiny ripples in the quantum field became visible, forming intricate patterns that reminded Wong of water droplets hitting a calm surface. These distortions, he muttered, they're not random. They're following some kind of mathematical sequence. The lab's door slid open, admitting Captain Rodriguez. She'd spent the past weeks testifying before the United Earth Defense Council, convincing them of the grave threat the Drachnid posed. Her testimony, combined with the sensor data from the Valiant, had initiated Project Prometheus, humanity's crash program to develop countermeasures against the raiders. Please tell me you found something, Marcus, Elena said, joining him at the holographic display. Maybe, he replied, gesturing to the quantum ripples. The Drachnid aren't creating tears in spacetime. They're exploiting existing quantum filaments, microscopic wrinkles that exist everywhere in space. Their technology lets them locate and expand these filaments, using them as shortcuts through space. Elena studied the patterns. Can we block them? Better. Wong's eyes gleamed with excitement. We can predict them. These quantum filaments follow universal mathematical principles. If we can detect and map them, we can anticipate where the Drachnid will appear, Elena finished, understanding dawning on her face. Exactly. But that's not all. Wong pulled up another dataset. Remember how their ships seem to have organic components? Our detailed scans suggest they're using some form of engineered crystalline life form as their computing systems. It's incredibly advanced, but it has one critical weakness. It's susceptible to specific electromagnetic frequencies. In another part of the station, Lieutenant Commander David Patul was running combat simulations with a team of tactical officers. The holographic training room projected scenarios based on the Hadrian encounter, allowing them to test different strategies against the raiders' superior technology. Again, Patul ordered as another simulation ended in defeat. We need to think differently. The Drachnid expect us to fight like a conventional military force. So let's not. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, who'd transferred from communications to tactical after the Hadrian incident, spoke up. What if we treat their spatial distortions like an ocean? On Earth, submarines don't just hide in the water. They use thermal layers and acoustic shadows to become virtually invisible. Patul's eyes lit up. Area, new simulation. Model the quantum filaments as ocean currents. Let's see if we can hide in their own territory. As the simulation began, Admiral Chen entered the training room. He watched silently as the tactical team implemented their new strategy, using the mapped quantum filaments to mask their approach until they were within striking distance of the simulated Drachnid vessels. Impressive, he commented as the simulation ended in humanity's first virtual victory. But can we scale this up? With the right ships, yes, Patul answered confidently. We need to design vessels specifically for this kind of warfare. Smaller, more maneuverable, with systems optimized for quantum field operations. The Admiral nodded. You'll have them. The Council has approved the construction of a new fleet. We're calling it the Shadow Force, ships designed to hunt the hunters. In Lab Module 3, Dr. Isabella Santos was making her own breakthrough. Her team had been studying the Drachnid's adaptive shielding technology, trying to understand how it could absorb such incredible amounts of energy. It's not just absorbing the energy, she explained to her colleagues. It's redirecting it through higher dimensional spaces. But this process creates a momentary phase shift in their shield frequency. She pulled up a simulation showing how a properly timed series of attacks could exploit this phase shift, creating a cascade failure in the Drachnid's defensive systems. We can't match their technology directly, but we can use their own complexity against them. As these developments converged, Project Prometheus evolved from a desperate defensive measure into something more. A comprehensive strategy to counter the Drachnid threat. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to take its adversaries' advantages, and turn them into vulnerabilities. 6 months after the Hadrian incident, the first Shadow Force vessel was ready for launch. The HSS Nightshade represented everything humanity had learned about fighting the Drachnid. Its hull was covered in quantum sensors capable of detecting and mapping spatial filaments. Its weapons were specifically tuned to exploit the weaknesses in Drachnid crystalline computing systems. Most importantly, it carried humanity's determination to prove that superior technology alone didn't guarantee victory. As Elena stood on the Nightshade's bridge for its maiden voyage, she felt a fierce pride in what humanity had accomplished. In just 6 months, they'd gone from nearly helpless against the Drachnid to having a fighting chance. Now it was time to show the raiders that they'd made a serious mistake in underestimating Earth's children. All systems ready, Captain. Lieutenant Chen reported from his station. Elena smiled. Then let's go hunting. The HSS Nightshade glided silently through the quantum filaments of deep space, its advanced sensors mapping the invisible highways the Drachnid used for their raids. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched as tactical displays showed 3 other Shadow Force vessels moving in perfect coordination with them: the Phantom, the Eclipse, and the Umbra. Each ship represented humanity's answer to the Drachnid threat, incorporating everything they'd learned since the Hadrian incident. Contact. Lieutenant Chen's voice was barely above a whisper, though in the absolute silence of the bridge it carried clearly. Quantum distortion patterns matching Drachnid signatures detected in Sector 7. Elena leaned forward in her command chair. For 2 months, they'd been tracking Drachnid raid patterns, gathering intelligence, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Show me." The tactical hologram expanded, revealing the telltale ripples in space-time that preceded a Drachnid emergence. But this time, humanity wasn't the prey caught unaware. They were the hunters lying in wait. 3 vessels, Chen continued, matching the configurations we encountered at Hadrian. They appear to be preparing to raid the Centauri mining colony. "Not today," Alina said firmly. "Battle formations. Remember your training. We've prepared for this." The Shadow Force ships moved into position, using the quantum filaments to mask their approach, just as submarines once used thermal layers in Earth's oceans. Dr. Wong's predictions had been perfect. The Drachnid ships emerged exactly where expected, their organic crystal hulls shimmering with predatory confidence. "They haven't detected us," Tactical Officer Sarah Mitchell reported. "Their sensors are focused on the colony." Elena took a deep breath. "Execute Operation Shadow Strike." The 4 human vessels struck simultaneously, emerging from their quantum hiding spots with precise timing. The Drachnid ships, caught completely by surprise, tried to activate their advanced shielding systems. But humanity had learned their weakness as well. "Target their phase shift vulnerabilities," Elena ordered. Coordinated Strike Pattern Alpha. The Shadow Force ships launched their attack with surgical precision. Their weapons, specifically tuned to exploit the crystalline computing systems of the Drachnid vessels, created cascading failures in the raiders' defensive systems. The element of surprise, combined with months of careful preparation, gave humanity its first real advantage. "Direct hit on their lead vessel," Mitchell reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "Their shield harmonics are destabilizing exactly as Dr. Santos predicted." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human military history. The Shadow Force ships danced through quantum filaments, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, striking at the Drachnid vessel's weak points before fading back into the quantum background noise. The raiders, accustomed to being the superior force, found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. "Their lead ship is attempting an emergency quantum jump," Chen reported. "Not this time," Elena responded. "Deploy quantum anchors." The Shadow Force ships launched specially designed devices that stabilized the local quantum filaments, temporarily preventing the Drachnid from using their spatial distortion technology to escape. It was like cutting the strings of a puppet, leaving the raiders to fight on humanity's terms. The battle ended in less than 20 minutes. 2 Drachnid vessels were disabled, their crystalline computing systems shattered by precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses. The third was captured largely intact, a prize that would provide invaluable intelligence about their technology and operations. As Elena surveyed the aftermath, a transmission came through from one of the disabled Drachnid ships. The universal translator processed the message, and a familiar deep, resonant voice filled the bridge. But this time, it carried a note of disbelief rather than ancient malice. "Impossible," the Drachnid commander stated. "You are a primitive species. How did you?" "You made a fundamental mistake," Elena interrupted. "You judged us by our technology level rather than our potential. Humanity doesn't just adapt. We evolve. We learn. And we never, ever give up." The victory at Centauri marked a turning point in the conflict with the Drachnid. News of the battle spread quickly through the galaxy, reaching even the Asterian collective. The diplomatic talks that had been delayed by the Hadrian incident were suddenly back on the table, but now humanity came to them not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals who had proven their worth. Analysis of the captured Drachnid vessel revealed something even more significant. The raiders weren't acting independently. They were part of a larger organization, one that had been systematically testing and culling what they considered lesser species before they could become threats. Humanity's victory hadn't just saved a mining colony, it had disrupted a centuries-old pattern of technological suppression. In the days that followed, representatives from other species who had suffered under Drachnid raids began reaching out to Earth. They brought with them their own knowledge, their own experiences, and most importantly, their own determination to end the Drachnid threat once and for all. As Elena read through the diplomatic communications flooding in from across the sector, she realized that humanity had achieved something far more valuable than a military victory. They had proven that technological superiority alone didn't determine the outcome of conflicts. Innovation, adaptation, and sheer determination could overcome any advantage. The tide hadn't just turned in humanity's favor. It had turned for every species that had ever been dismissed as primitive or unworthy. The hunt for the Drachnid's hidden base of operations could now begin in earnest, with humanity leading a coalition of the very species the raiders had once preyed upon. "Send word to Earth," Elena ordered. "Tell them to prepare for guests. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do when we work together." The Grand Conference Hall of the United Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva buzzed with activity as representatives from 12 different species gathered around a massive holographic display. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood beside Admiral Chen, watching as Dr. Marcus Wong presented his latest findings from the captured Drachnid vessel. "The quantum filament network they use isn't random," Wong explained, his hands moving through the holographic data. "It's part of a larger pattern, like a web centered around a specific point in space. We believe we've located their primary base of operations." The hologram shifted to show a region of space near the galactic core, where quantum filament density was highest. A Zentari representative, their crystalline form shimmering with internal light, moved forward to study the display. The void of silence, the Zentari's translated voice chimed. "Our legends speak of it as a place where ships vanish without trace. We always assumed it was a natural phenomenon." "Nothing natural about it," Wong replied. "The Drachnid have been using the intense gravitational forces in that region to mask their presence. The same forces that make it dangerous to approach also make it perfect for their quantum filament technology." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "Which is why we're not going to approach it. Not directly. Captain Rodriguez, please brief our allies on Operation Thunderbolt." Elena activated her own section of the holographic display, showing the new fleet that Earth and its allies had been assembling in secret. "The Drachnid expect us to attack their base the same way we'd attack any other target. But thanks to the combined knowledge of everyone in this room, we've developed something they won't see coming." A hologram focused on a new class of vessel, unlike anything previously seen in human space. The Stormbreaker class combines human quantum mapping technology with Zentari crystal computing, Arcturian phase shift drives, and Novari energy distribution systems. But its real advantage is this. She highlighted a special section of the ship's design. The quantum resonance chamber. Instead of just riding the quantum filaments like the Drachnid do, these ships can actually manipulate them. "We're not going to fight our way into their base. We're going to redirect the very pathways they use to travel." The assembled representatives murmured with approval. A Novari ambassador, their bioluminescent patterns showing excitement, raised a tentacle. "How many ships do you need?" "We've completed construction of 3 Stormbreakers," Admiral Chen answered. "But our simulations suggest we need at least 8 for the operation to succeed. The Novari Collective will provide resources for 2 more," the ambassador declared without hesitation. "The Zentari Confederation commits to building 3, their representative chimed in. One by one, the assembled species pledged their support, not just with resources, but with ships and crews of their own. The Drachnid had spent centuries keeping these species isolated, preventing them from advancing too far. Now that very oppression had united them in a way that might never have happened otherwise. 3 months later, Elena stood on the bridge of the HSS Stormbreaker, the lead ship of humanity's new fleet. Around her, a crew composed of members from 5 different species worked in perfect coordination. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with power, its crystalline core pulsing with possibilities. "All ships report ready, Captain," Lieutenant Chen announced. His console now incorporated Zentari crystal displays, allowing for faster processing of quantum data. "Coalition fleet is in position," added Commander Sarah Mitchell, who had transferred to serve as Elena's first officer. The Drachnids still haven't detected our approach. Elena surveyed the tactical display showing their fleet of 12 ships, 8 Stormbreakers, and 4 Shadow Force vessels. Each represented the combined technological and tactical knowledge of multiple species working together. It was a sight that would have been impossible just a year ago. "Begin Operation Thunderbolt," she ordered. "Initiate quantum resonance sequence." The Stormbreakers moved into formation, their resonance chambers synchronizing to create a cascading effect through the quantum filament network. The space around them began to shimmer as they exerted control over the very pathways the Drachnid had long thought were their exclusive domain. Deep in the void of silence, alarms began to sound in the Drachnid's hidden base. Their sensors detected massive disturbances in their quantum transport network, but by then it was too late. The Coalition fleet had already begun their attack, not with weapons, but by rewriting the rules of how space itself behaved in that region. "Quantum filament network is destabilizing," Wang reported from his science station. "Their base's primary defenses are losing coherence." Elena allowed herself a small smile. The Drachnid had relied on their superior technology for so long that they'd forgotten a fundamental truth. True advancement comes not from having better tools, but from finding better ways to use them. "All ships, prepare for Phase 2, she commanded. "Let's show them what happens when they force different species to work together against a common enemy." The battle for the void of silence was about to begin, and with it, the final chapter in humanity's transformation from prey to predator. But more than that, it would mark the beginning of a new era in galactic history, one where cooperation and innovation would prove more powerful than any single species' technological advantage. The void of silence erupted with energy as the Coalition fleet's quantum manipulation began to tear apart the very fabric of the Drachnid's hidden sanctuary. Within their massive base, carved from a collapsed star's remnants, the ancient raiders finally faced something they hadn't encountered in centuries: fear. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched as the tactical hologram showed the Drachnid base's defenses failing one by one. The combined power of 8 Stormbreakers had transformed the quantum filament network from the raiders' highway into their prison. Every attempt they made to escape through their usual spatial tiers was met with failure as the Coalition ships maintained their quantum resonance field. "Multiple Drachnid vessels emerging from the base," Commander Mitchell reported. "Counting 20. No, 30 ships. They're forming a defensive perimeter. They're trapped, and they know it," Elena observed. "For the first time, they can't simply disappear when faced with a real fight." The Drachnid fleet was impressive. Their organic crystal ships larger and more numerous than any force they'd previously encountered. But the Coalition had prepared for this moment. Each ship in their fleet represented the combined ingenuity of multiple species, each contributing their unique strengths to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "All ships, execute attack pattern unity," Elena commanded. The Coalition fleet broke formation with practiced precision, each vessel moving to its designated position. The 4 Shadow Force ships vanished into the quantum background noise, while the Stormbreakers began their carefully choreographed dance. The Drachnid struck first, their energy weapons lighting up space with impossible colors. But the Coalition ships were ready. Centauri crystal shields deflected the worst of the assault, while Novari energy distribution systems prevented overloads. Human tactical innovations kept their formations fluid and unpredictable. "They're trying to concentrate their fire on the Stormbreakers," Wang reported from his science station. "They figured out what we're doing with the quantum field." "Too late," Elena replied. "Execute Phase 3. The hidden Shadow Force vessels struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, their weapons precisely targeted at the weaknesses they'd discovered in Drachnid technology. At the same time, the Stormbreakers began to pulse their quantum resonance chambers in a new pattern. "Quantum resonance cascade initiating," Wang announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Field integrity at 90%. 85. Holding at 82%. The space around the Drachnid base began to warp and twist as the Coalition fleet's combined efforts reached their crescendo. The quantum filaments that the raiders had used for so long were being turned against them, creating a maze of spatial distortions that their ships couldn't navigate. A transmission cut through the chaos, the universal translator struggling to keep up with the emotion in the Drachnid commander's voice. "What have you done? This is impossible. You spent centuries keeping other species down," Elena responded, her voice firm, "preventing them from advancing, from working together. You'd never considered that your actions might unite them against you." The battle raged for hours, but its outcome was never really in doubt. The coalition fleet moved with perfect coordination, each ship complementing the other's strengths and covering their weaknesses. When a Zentari vessel's shields began to fail, a Novari ship was there to provide power support. When Drachnid attackers tried to overwhelm a human vessel, Arcturian phase shift technology allowed reinforcements to arrive instantly. One by one, the Drachnid ships fell silent, their crystalline computing systems shattered by precisely targeted attacks. Their base, once hidden in the heart of the void of silence, now lay exposed to the coalition sensors. "Final quantum resonance pulse charge," Wong reported. "Ready on your command, Captain." Elena took a moment to survey the battlefield. The coalition fleet had suffered damage, but every ship was still operational, a testament to the strength they'd found in unity. "Send the pulse. Let's end this." The Stormbreakers released their final attack, a concentrated burst of quantum energy that completely severed the Drachnid base's connection to the filament network. Without their ability to manipulate spacetime, the raiders' greatest advantage was gone. "Multiple surrender signals detected," Mitchell announced, her voice carrying a note of triumph. "They're standing down, Captain." As the coalition fleet moved to secure the Drachnid base, Elena received transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species that had suffered under the raiders' predation were emerging from hiding, ready to join the new alliance that had formed in the crucible of this conflict. In the weeks that followed, the true scope of the Drachnid's activities became clear. Their base contained records of thousands of interventions in developing civilizations, each carefully calculated to prevent the emergence of potential rivals. But in doing so, they had inadvertently created the very thing they feared most: a coalition of species working together, combining their knowledge and strengths. 1 month after the battle, Elena stood before the newly formed Galactic Coalition Council on Earth. Representatives from over 30 species had gathered to sign the Unity Accords, establishing a framework for cooperation and mutual defense. The Drachnid believed that keeping species isolated and technologically limited would ensure their dominance. She addressed the assembly. "Instead, they taught us the most valuable lesson possible, that true strength lies not in superior technology or ancient knowledge, but in our ability to work together, to combine our unique perspectives and abilities." As she looked out over the assembled representatives, Elena couldn't help but smile. Humanity had entered the galactic stage less than 2 years ago, seen as primitive by many. Now they stood at the center of a new era of cooperation and advancement. The stars had once seemed full of threats and predators, but humanity had done what it did best: adapt, innovate, and turn adversity into opportunity. In facing the Drachnid threat, they hadn't just proven their own worth, they had helped forge a new future for all spacefaring species. The hunt was over. The Age of Unity had begun.